He didn't land in London like a prince returning to familiar soil. He stepped off that plane like a man clutching at air, walking into a country that once cheered his name, but now stared at him like an awkward ghost from the tabloids. There were no waving crowds, no smiling Meghan by his side, no warm welcome. Just silence. And that silence? It wasn't random, it was a verdict. You could feel it in the air. He wasn't here for reconciliation. He wasn't here for healing. He was here because the walls in California are closing in, and survival doesn't wait for dignity. Behind the palace gates, the atmosphere was frigid. No long hugs, no warm smiles. The conversations were clipped, the meetings short. Reports described them as more transactional than familial. And can you blame them? The royal family has long memories. The Oprah interview, the memoir that ripped open wounds, the Netflix drama, the constant barrage of truth bombs aimed directly at the institution that raised him. You don't sweep that kind of shrapnel under a rug with a cup of tea. And here's where the humiliation cuts deepest. King Charles isn't just looking at Harry as his son anymore. He's looking at him like a liability, a PR nightmare, a financial black hole. Why would the palace funnel millions into a man who spent years branding them as toxic villains? That age of indulgence is over. This time, the doors didn't swing open. They barely budged. Harry walked in with an agenda, maybe a pitch, maybe hope, but he walked out empty-handed. No financial support, no symbolic photo ops, no olive branch extended, just an unglamorous flight back to California. And the whole world saw it. That's what makes it sting. It wasn't just a private disappointment, it was a public one. Think about the optics. A man who once declared he wanted nothing to do with the monarchy now shows up like a businessman begging an old investor to reconsider. The palace? They're already moving on. The machine is running without him. And the world knows it. Let's talk about the brand, because this is where the unraveling is most obvious. Harry and Meghan were once the hottest commodity on the planet. The rebel royals, the couple who walked away from the gilded cage to live on their own terms. They had sympathy. They had Hollywood. They had Netflix money, Spotify deals, and endless buzz. But nothing lasts forever. The shine has worn off. The Netflix chapter, fading, Spotify, gone. Meghan's podcast, finished before it could even grow. The production pipeline that once looked unstoppable now feels dry. And here's the cruel reality. Hollywood doesn't chase faded names. It craves novelty. It devours drama. And if you can't deliver that, it finds someone else who will. Harry walking into the UK without Meghan at his side wasn't just a scheduling quirk. It was strategy. Meghan knows better than to step back into that cold palace atmosphere without controlling the narrative. She left Harry alone to face it. And standing there without her, he looked smaller, vulnerable. Not like a power couple on equal footing, but like a man stripped of the only safety net he had. Back in Montecito, the numbers don't lie. That mansion doesn't pay for itself. Security, PR, management, it all bleeds money. And the projects to sustain that lifestyle? Thinning fast. Harry's trip to the UK wasn't about family, not really. It was about stabilising an empire that's cracking at the edges. And the media smelled it. The headlines were merciless. Prince returns to UK, leaves empty-handed. The story wasn't about reconciliation. It was about rejection. And when the press writes that script, the brand suffers. Harry and Meghan's fairy tale of breaking free is being rewritten as a slow motion collapse. Hollywood whispers don't help. Behind closed doors, executives are asking, is it even worth it anymore? The book's done. The docuseries has been forgotten. The podcast fizzled. What's next? Where's the spark? If you're not generating buzz, you're not bankable. And right now, Harry isn't bankable. He's a cautionary tale. Here's the irony. Harry left the monarchy thinking his story alone would sustain him, that he didn't need the palace, the institution, the crown. But outside the palace, there's no automatic relevance. There's no safety net. Every project has to prove itself. And the numbers prove something brutal. The audience has moved on. Meghan's silence during this UK trip wasn't absence. It was theatre. A silent message that said, "You deal with it, Harry." And the result? He looked alone because he was. Inside those royal walls, he wasn't the Duke of Sussex. He wasn't the confident outsider. He was a man standing in front of people who had already decided they don't need him anymore. No title stripped, not yet. But no favours given, either. Charles isn't blind. He knows the cycle. Give Harry one lifeline, and 6 months later, you're in another memoir, another interview, another Netflix confession. The trust is gone. And once trust is gone, what's left? Formal distance. The public sees it too. Once sympathetic, now sceptical. The contradictions are too glaring. How can a man build a brand on rejecting royalty while still circling back to it every time the money dries up? It's hypocrisy in plain sight. And people aren't buying it anymore. On social media, the ridicule is brutal. Memes of Harry walking into London alone. Comments like, "Guess Netflix stopped paying," rack up likes. That kind of mockery doesn't just hurt the ego. It corrodes the brand. Public perception is power. And right now, Harry is hemorrhaging both. And that's the most dangerous place to be. Not hated, not feared, but ignored. Forgotten. The man who once commanded global attention now feels like yesterday's headline. And once you slip into irrelevance, climbing back is almost impossible. Because here's the truth. He's caught in limbo. The palace won't take him back. Hollywood doesn't see him as shiny anymore. He's unwanted by one world and outgrown by the other. That's not independence. That's exile. And exile isn't a brand. It's a slow fade. The real danger for Harry isn't that the palace dislikes him. It's that they no longer need him. Once upon a time, his face added warmth to a stiff institution. He was the soldier prince, the fun royal, the one who made the monarchy feel human. That was his role, his value. But when he walked away, that role didn't vanish. It was replaced. William's children have grown into the spotlight. Catherine commands global attention with one photograph. The monarchy didn't collapse without Harry. It carried on stronger, tighter, and more focused. That's the humiliation he can't escape. For years, he thought the palace needed him more than he needed them. But reality has flipped. They are thriving. He is struggling. And that reversal is devastating. Look at William. He doesn't have to say a word. He doesn't give interviews or fire back in memoirs. He doesn't need to. His silence is louder than Harry's entire PR machine. While Harry and Meghan push out content, William simply appears with his family, shaking hands representing the crown. The optics are flawless. The heir stands tall, while the spare looks desperate. That contrast is brutal, and the world sees it. Meanwhile, Harry's narrative is unravelling. He built a story on being the rebel prince who wanted privacy and peace, but the man who wanted to escape the cameras is now chasing them, begging for attention with every deal, every podcast, every documentary. And people notice. The contradiction has become the story. And the industry, it's shifting. Executives who once scrambled to attach Harry and Meghan to projects now hesitate. Why? Because controversy without payoff isn't valuable. And lately, the Sussex brand doesn't deliver. No breakout hits, no viral moments, no blockbuster ratings. Just a cycle of hype followed by disappointment. In Hollywood, you only get so many chances before the calls stop coming. Even their inner circle has shrunk. Where are the celebrity friends now? Where are the A-listers they once rubbed shoulders with? Hollywood is fickle. It doesn't want proximity to failure. And failure is exactly what people are starting to associate with Harry. Not rebellion, not bravery, failure. And Meghan? Her absence from this UK trip spoke volumes. She knows the palace coldness. She knows the humiliation waiting in those rooms. And she wasn't about to subject herself to it again. Not without full control of the narrative. So she stayed behind, letting Harry walk into the storm alone. To the public, that choice screams strategy. Meghan protects the brand, even if it means leaving Harry to look weak. And weak is exactly how he looked, wandering into hostile territory without backup, without his partner, without a plan. When Harry sat in those brief palace meetings, he wasn't negotiating from strength. He was pitching himself to people who had already closed the book. Charles wasn't listening like a father. He was calculating like a king. And the calculation is simple. No lifelines. Not again. Because every lifeline becomes another betrayal in print. And the public, they're done. Sympathy has turned to skepticism, then to fatigue. People are tired of the constant cycle of confessionals. The Oprah interview was explosive. The Netflix series was dramatic. The memoir was juicy. But what's left to tell? When every chapter is just another grievance, the audience tunes out. And that's the greatest danger to any public figure. Not anger, but indifference. Indifference kills careers. It kills relevance. And Harry is staring it in the face. The memes tell the story. The tweets sting harder than the tabloids. So much for independence. Guess Netflix isn't paying anymore. The ridicule has become relentless. Online perception is everything, and Harry's perception is circling the drain. Think about it. The man who once symbolized a bold escape from tradition is now mocked as a man crawling back to the very system he trashed. The rebel prince is being rewritten as the desperate spare. And once the internet rewrites your story, good luck taking it back. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the royal family tightens its grip on relevance. Catherine appears in public and the photos dominate headlines worldwide. William attends a global summit and world leaders line up for handshakes. The monarchy projects stability, legacy, continuity. They don't need Harry's drama. In fact, his absence makes them look stronger. He thought walking away would weaken them. Instead, it exposed how expendable he really was. And that's the ultimate humiliation. Discovering you weren't the linchpin you thought you were. Back in California, the bills keep coming. The mansion, the security, the staff, it all costs millions. But the projects to pay for it, thinner every year. Hollywood doesn't run on sentiment. It runs on profit. And right now, Harry isn't profitable. This is the slow collapse, the one playing out in real time. Every failed deal, every awkward return trip, every icy palace reception adds to the perception that Harry has lost the plot. He isn't shaping his story anymore. He's reacting to it, chasing relevance instead of commanding it. And Meghan? She's reportedly planning rebrands, new projects, new angles. But the market has changed. Audiences have grown tired of the cycle. Reveal, sympathy, scandal, fade, rinse and repeat. It doesn't land anymore. The story feels recycled. The sympathy well has dried up. Even their supporters admit it. The spark is gone. The shine has dulled. And the world has moved on. That's the cruel truth. Harry isn't hated like before. He's not feared like before. He's being forgotten. And in the world of power, fame, and relevance, being forgotten is the kiss of death. What's left is a man caught between two worlds, unwanted by the one he abandoned, outgrown by the one he tried to join. A man who thought freedom meant opportunity, but discovered freedom without support means isolation. The palace doesn't need him. Hollywood doesn't want him. And the public doesn't care anymore. Harry thought he was writing a new chapter of independence. Instead, he's living the final act of a cautionary tale. Because when you walk away from a crown, you better have something stronger to replace it. And Harry? He doesn't. Not anymore. And that's the story. A prince who traded legacy for limelight and ended up with neither. This isn't just a setback. It's an ending. And the whole world is watching it unfold. So, what do you think? Did Harry miscalculate his freedom? Or was he always destined to fade without the crown behind him? Drop your thoughts below because this conversation is far from over. And if you want more unfiltered exposés where we cut through the PR spin and show you the ruthless truth, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the story of Harry and Meghan, it's not finished, but the ending may be closer than they think.